incredible lineup of experts, which include, well, me. That's right, I'm going to be wearing many different toques this afternoon. So to get things started, I'll do the honor of introducing today's master conductor, our tour manager, who's going to make sure we rock this discussion from start to finish. Because even rock stars need someone to keep us on track. Stephanie Ratko, CEM, CNP, is a powerhouse in the world of trade shows and events. With nearly 20 years of experience, and we're talking from everything from intimate executive retreats to massive show-stopping trade shows, Stephanie's been at the helm of some of the most memorable industry experiences out there. But here's the twist. Not only does she plan these events, but she's also been on the other side representing destinations. She's basically the ultimate Swiss Army knife of the trade show world. Equipped with insights that are sharp, precise, and guaranteed to leave a mark. She's currently a driving force with MPI Toronto, leading their membership initiatives and advocating for exhibitors everywhere. When she's not shaping the future of the trade show world, she's teaching future industry pros as a CEM faculty member for IAEE. Let's give a warm welcome to the fabulous Stephanie Ratko, our moderator.
Thank you very much, MC. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope we have a really good and collaborative discussion with each other today. So, as you know, there's a lot that goes into trade shows. Recently, the Hospitality and Tourism program at the University of Guelph did a study, and they found that, I've got too many things in my hands. They found that more than 2.3 million people visit Toronto every year for conferences and events, and that generates $1.1 billion towards the economy and provides over 10,000 jobs. So yes, I know we're in Ottawa, but I didn't find the study for Ottawa, I only found one for Toronto. So as exhibitors, we're all part of that. And you might not think of yourself as an exhibitor because maybe you're a business development manager, or you're in sales, or you have the title of project manager or event manager. But if you are setting up a booth in a trade show, regardless of your everyday role, you are an exhibitor. So if it wasn't for our show producers, our show service suppliers, official contractors, we would, as exhibitors, we'd be falling apart. We wouldn't know what to do with ourselves, and these shows would not happen. So for today's discussion, my hope is that we'll be able to address the critical issue of aligning our expectations with the need to optimize expected outcomes of the shows. Our aim is to foster collaborative discussion, no finger pointing or he said, she said. We're all friends here, we're all working together, where we can all share our perspectives, our challenges, and our ideas to enhance the effectiveness of our future show experiences. So join me for the next 45 minutes, and I hope you'll leave with a deeper understanding of how to bridge the gap between expectations and needs for trade show success, that you will take away actionable insights, best practices, and a renewed commitment to collaboration. And finally, to be able to create future experiences which are more rewarding for all. But first, if you need any sort of wordly translation, please scan the QR code now on the screen, and then we'll get started. So, of course, I can't do this all by myself. I do have a wonderful panel of experts that I've assembled for you today. Our first panelist is well known across the Canadian chapters and a member of the MPI Toronto Board of Directors, which is actually how I met her. A seasoned exhibitor that is committed and passionate professional who believes in the undeniable value of face-to-face meetings and that great things happen when people come together. She is a humble leader with over 20 years of experience in the corporate and tourism industry and has demonstrated history of linking communities strategically and socially through alliances and partnerships. A team-oriented thinker who inspires naturally with her enthusiasm and drive focused on reaching organizational goals and the overall grand vision. Balancing life practices, you can find her on the trails or the water as she's an avid hiker, self-enthusiast and swimmer, living, working, and playing in the beautiful Laurentian Mountains of Toronto. Please join me in welcoming Marie-Chantal Thibault in her new hat, her new too. So following, this is our exhibitor. So next we have our show producer. Some of you may know our next panelist from your involvement with the Canadian Meetings and Events Expo. He brings to the panel over 13 years of experience in the events industry and specializes in curating unique experiences that engage, inspire, and educate diverse audiences and sectors. He plays a crucial role in the planning and execution of Canada's largest and longest running trade show with education and is a tremendous support as part of the team behind MPI's The Exhibitor Community. Please join me in welcoming Sean Shapiro, Show Manager for the Canadian Meeting Events Expo, Newcom Media Show Division. And last but not least, I had the pleasure of meeting our third panelist when I was in Chicago for CEM Week last year. He was one of the instructors. We then crossed paths again, once I became part of the CEM faculty. And then yet again, this year at WEC, where I somehow managed to get him involved in the exhibitor community and convince him to come on this panel. Not only is he an international CEM instructor who facilitates interactive learning experiences, interactive learning experiences through an evidence-based lens, he is also a self-proclaimed bibliophile committed to empowering leaders in the meeting and event profession to undergo mindset shifts, embrace deeper thinking, and champion authenticity and vulnerability. He is currently preparing for his role as president for the MPI Rocky Mountain chapter in 2025, but you can also find him exploring the seas as an avid scuba diver, globetrotter, and passionate advocate for all things related to the ocean. Please join me in welcoming Matt Call, CEM, AP, CMP. All right, so now that I've got my esteemed panel together, how do we all tie in together? Well, as you can see, we have our exhibitor, our show producer, and our official show contractor, show services provider. They are all a part of a very intricate system, the trade show ecosystem. Oftentimes we, the exhibitor, are feeling like these two guys are putting roadblocks in our way with all their rules, their regulations, their deadlines, their timelines, early bird rates, do this, don't do that. But really, it's actually the opposite. Those rules and regulations are not in place because of their rules and regulations, but because of policies and laws that they have to follow. But they're also there to help us in getting ourselves ready and organized. So to today's discussion, as mentioned, I'm really hoping to bring light the opportunities to better understand each other and work together towards the ultimate goal that we all have. What's the goal? Anybody tell me? A successful show. All right, so there will be time at the end of the session today for questions, but if something grabs your attention, please feel free to raise your hand, ask the question. By all means, I do have my questions that we've all practiced and worked on, but we're all pretty much ready to go, and we are open to following the discussion wherever it may lead. And remember, this is a collaborative discussion. We're not going to be pointing fingers at each other. It's to better learn and understand why we all do the things we do. So let's get started. I'm going to start with Matt. What are some of the consistent challenges that you are having to face when navigating getting organized for an upcoming show?
That's a great question. When it comes to challenges, a lot of it comes down to education and having to re-educate our exhibitors and the people that are exhibiting, the sponsors, because they don't truly understand what goes behind the purchase of a table or the shipping and material handling. They just assume, they see a price and they said, oh, why? That's so expensive, but why is it so expensive? And understanding that and having to educate, it's a challenge that we have to go through every single day.
Great, thank you. And Sean, what would you say your consistent challenges are fighting?
Education, but on a different level. When we send out our exhibitor kits, you always know that the exhibitor is working on 2 shows before it, 2 shows after it. So it's really making sure everyone knows the rules for this specific show, any changes, and just make sure that everyone stays on track.
Thank you. And MC, obviously your challenges are coming from a different angle.
Yes, very much so. So as an exhibitor, I try to look at it, like I used to be a DMC, so I know what it is for a planner as well. I plan, and even for destination management, I'm also planning. So our lives are extremely busy. So although they do an excellent job at providing these kits that are there and they're tools that are going to help us, the biggest challenge for me is to stay on track of all of those show guides, because there's not one, there's two, there's three, there's four, there's five, and I have to treat it like I'm planning a program for every single one that has different rules, different guidelines, different country might be different rules for the loading dock and all of this craziness. So that's a major challenge, to then also lead a team, make my partners happy, all of that fun stuff.
So I did mention that we practiced this, and in our original practice, they all talked about deadlines and timelines with that first question, and now they changed it to exhibitor kits. So we're going to jump to that question. And we're going to talk about we're going to talk about exhibitor kits. So as Enchi mentioned, she did mention that I don't even need those anymore. They're overwhelming. There's a lot of information. You've got multiple shows happening at the same time, or consequentially run right after the other. So MC, in your world, what would be the most ideal timeline for you to receive your exhibitor kit? For you, in order for you to be prepared?
Oh my God, I don't know if I have the right answer to that, because you can send it to me 4 months in advance, you can send it to me 3 months in advance, you can send it to me 3 weeks in advance. I'm still planning all kinds of other things at the same time. So thank you for when you do send them to us in a timely manner and trying to keep us focused and organized. Truth is, squirrel in the house over here is doing my best. So what I use is a project manager tool that some of you all know, which is Basecamp, and I use that as my time management to kind of get all the rules in line, because not any one of your guidelines are the same. So I have to have like a trade show Basecamp that I kind of go through and make sure that I'm meeting all of those deadlines on time. So, I mean, is there an ideal time? You tell me.
So I'll toss it, either one of you, go right ahead.
The ideal time is actually 90 days. We've done a ton of work in-house to figure out when is that perfect time to send out a service kit to all of the exhibitors and sponsors, and it really comes down to 90 days, because that's when we see marketers and exhibitors start planning for that next round. But it's important that you're not just sending a service kit, you're sending those key deadlines, and it's not a Where's Waldo game where you have to search through 100 pages. It's a quick fact sheets of, you don't have time to read this right now, but these are the dates you need to mark your calendar for immediately, so that way you don't miss these deadlines. Because if not, Sean's gonna get the phone call and be like, what the? Why are we paying this much money? We missed the deadline. We didn't know about the deadline. Well, it was actually right there in the first email you read.
Keyword, mark your calendar, MC.
When it comes down to the timeline, the other thing on our end where we sort of say straddle between the 3 month to 4 month is also trying to figure out what's that perfect day, because every association seems to have something going on each month, and then you have the holidays, and then fan this, fan that. So it's really trying to not have it go out a week where you know that 70% of your exhibitors are not looking at their email, and it's down the list of emails and it's lost.
Monday mornings, 90 days out, between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. with the highest read rate. As long as it's not the Monday,
It's a science.
the Monday before a holiday source. Yes, it is a science, and we use that because that's how people read their email. You got to look at those things.
Yeah, so speaking of deadlines and timelines and 90 days out, why do we have those deadlines and timelines in place? What is the purpose of them? Just to drive us as the exhibitor crazy, or is it to actually, conduct in an orderly manner and help us to understand the chaos behind the curtain?
Would anyone like to take that? No. Yes, it's a challenging thing, because a lot of the reasons the deadlines are in place is to help the success of the show, to help our show organizers, to help the exhibitors, to prepare for shipping, to prepare for the fire marshals if you're working in the United States of how they can develop the floor plans, to even pay the labor workers because we have to coordinate how many people we need to bring in to produce the show. So those deadlines kind of help us with the planning process, so that way we know how much we need of certain items and how much we need for labor tables and stuff.
100%, and I see some of the amazing suppliers in the room we use, and they have due dates too because they have due dates on top of those. So it's really to make sure the ecosystem idea, like we all have due dates because we work together. We all have resources we have to tap into. Everyone knowing what they need for that day. I mean, the labor, you know, what they're gonna need to have for the show. So I mean, it's really important. We don't just, you know, pick a date, you know, go on a roulette wheel and just June 15th, that's the one. It's everything has a reason.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, like, I appreciate these guys so much because they allow me to set myself up for success by setting me up to organize myself. But if I don't do it, if I don't take their tools, then that's on me. So, you know, the pain points that we call, or that I call bitter lemons, you guys are gonna laugh at me, I know, but I call my pain points bitter lemons, and I really want to turn my bitter lemons into lemonade. And these guys are my lemonade. Next, I appreciate it. You're annoying.
I'll remember that kindness when we get to the point when I'm annoying you.
And one more thing about the deadlines, though, it's important to know that the deadlines are set in place, but there's flexibility. And this comes down to having that conversation and the communication. If you know you're not going to make a deadline, reach out to your show organizer, reach out to your partners and say, hey, this is just not going to work for our timeline because of marketing materials, or we're waiting for a speaker or a specific sponsor. That's okay. But the more lead time that we have for that, and it's not a 5-alarm fire where you're calling us 24 hours before and say, we can't do this, we need flexibility. Well, why? Like, help us understand why.
Were you gonna say something? No?
Just nodding.
Okay, so I'm going to say something. So in our day-to-day, when we're talking to our suppliers, we're talking to our clients, we're trying as best as we can to have these authentic conversations, trying to get all of those answers that we need to have a successful event. But I found that as an exhibitor, fellow exhibitors shy away from speaking to my lemonade. But they're my lemonade because I chose to speak to them. I chose to be a pain back and ask 1,000 questions. And having that authenticity and having that collaborative conversation is what made it a good experience. So if we're not talking to each other and we're not providing them with what our needs are, they're not going to be able to help us. If we're not sharing that we're stressing with meeting a deadline, they're not going to be able to help us. So don't be afraid of them. They're great people.
It's the tree falling in the forest with no one there. If we don't know there's a tree falling in the forest, like, if we don't know there's an issue, we assume there's no issue. At the end of the day, like Matt and I, we have lots of different hats, but part of it is if you have a question, come to us. The more time, the better we can help you, but it's hard to help after the fact.
And I think it's all about building those relationships. I know for myself as an exhibitor, I try to make a really good effort to build that relationship on site with my show service provider and the show producers. I try to make their job easier by making sure I'm reading through my exhibitor kit. I'm making note of those deadlines. I'm making a point of on site, if I need a favor done and they actually are able to get that done for me in a timely manner, I get them something, I gift them something. Whether I take some of my promotional items that I have for in my booth to give away to the attendees, I'll be like, hey, here's a shirt, here's a hat or whatever. Or in some cases, when I know that the show producer is also working extremely hard and their show service provider is working extremely hard, I'll go maybe get them. One time I went and bought a bottle of Prosecco and a box of chocolates, and I said, here, for you to have once the show's done, enjoy, relax in your room, and have a good time. It's about building those relationships, not of being afraid to ask the questions. Sometimes I'm the person who asks too many questions, but it helps me to understand what they're doing better. So, by show of hands, how many do trade shows exhibits in the US? So, and the majority of you are here in Canada or internationally. So from experience, doing an exhibition or a trade show in the US is a lot different from being in Canada. They have a lot of different rules and regulations when it comes to fire marshals, when it comes to permits, when it comes to floor plans, the AODA, the regulations, the union laws, the time zones. So let's talk about those rules and regulations. How can we get, because I'm sure it's a critical point for a lot of us when trying to understand, as MC said, it's just, there's so many different things. A trade show is a trade show. An event is an event. There, as our MC said, or last night, it's a shared experience. The outcome is the same, the product is different. The education is different. So how can we better understand those rules and regulations? Why are they in place, and how can an exhibitor help themselves when they're doing so many different shows? Yeah, I'm looking at you, Matt.
We're all looking at you.
You're from the US.
Scene right now. So the question is, how can we help with the
How
understanding?
can we help
this?
them to understand those rules and regulations? Because when you get that exhibitor kit, and when you get the rules and regulations for your show, there's a lot of fine little legalese, and not everybody has the time to read through all that. So
Making sure they're seeing everything.
making sure they're seeing everything, making sure they're understanding everything, how to make that easier.
The best suggestion I can give for what we do for our clients is give as many opportunities for the education process, is to have and host those webinars. We keep history of exhibitors from shows that maybe order a little bit later. They have challenges with this. So that way we can reach out to them to have a more personal touch to say, hey, here's a little nudge. We don't say that you didn't order until 2 weeks before the event last year, but we know that they need a little bit better extra hand holding. So we help with some of our clients with that education process. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. That's where the challenge is when it comes to the education and about these timelines and why things are set in certain ways. That's the hardest part about my day-to-day job, is to know the rules and regulations for every single city, every single venue, because you can work in a venue right next door and it's completely different. So I have to be able to educate that for my clients and the exhibitors, or it won't be a successful show.
And how do you pass on that to the show producer so that Sean can properly educate his exhibitors in that area? Does he?
Gently.
So Sean, what do you do to help educate your exhibitors with that information?
So yeah, I would
He
say
holds my hand.
He can't hold 400 hands, MC.
call MC up. So really it's keeping a real eye on who's ordered, who hasn't ordered. Keep in touch with the venue, keep in touch with the hotels and room blocks, with your AV, with your show tech, GS. It's really understanding who has ordered, who hasn't ordered. And then it's exactly what Matt said. It's not saying it directly, but the next time you talk to someone, just hey, how are things going? Like no, but it's, it usually works. And
I've
it's
been
also
on the end of that email.
Did you
from
get
Sean
those
a couple
orders in
times.
MC?
hi MC, how you doing? Is anything new?
Did you fill out that form?
But no, it's, it's really just being there. Not everyone wants help, and that's okay. It's just being available, letting people know you're available, and making sure people know that you're there to help if needed. And sometimes, people would like support, sometimes they don't, and that's, great. I would say that the one big thing is there are definitely things that are necessities. For example, you need insurance, you need carpet, where there's things like scanner isn't optional, and I find that's also something really important to really help people understand, what are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You touched on, all of the pieces that you guys have to think about. Like, it's not all about MCs, there's other people that need your help. And what I find very helpful is that when these guys are organized and they know exactly who hasn't, because you're in control of your show, you're paying attention to the people that are coming to your show. So thank you for that. And those gentle touch points are making me feel special, because I feel that he's actually listening to my needs and he's paying attention that I have a deadline and he's giving me enough time to meet that deadline.
And I promise I talk to more people than just MC.
Of course.
And to that point, this is where the ecosystem stuff does come in even more so, because this is where we do talk to our partners in every venue, hotel, decorator, like everyone, because it's important we all communicate. What are the highs? What are the lows? Are they seeing issues? Is it July and they're seeing less people have ordered power than last year? You know, like it's really important to understand the trends on all ends, because again, we win together, we fail together, but we want to win together, so.
Exactly. Here's a fun little fact, is actually I used to work for Newcom Media for the show that Sean is now producing as the exhibitor services coordinator. So I was in charge of making sure all the exhibitors had everything they needed and answering their questions and doing that follow-up of, did you order your electrical? Did you do this? Did you do that? We need your booth payment, please. So with that, all of these things, everything that we have to do, these deadlines, these rules and regulations, the chaos of the move-in schedule, and we're not even going to go down that avenue today because that's a whole separate topic. I think understanding the move-in schedule and why it's set the way it is in the marshalling yards and all that fun stuff. But you know how you're doing all this stuff. So MC, you've got all these things on your plate. You've got multiple shows happening. You're doing sales calls. How do you ensure that your brand is getting out there when you're at the show?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you so much. So surround yourself by experts. So for me, I want to make sure that my brand is out there in a meaningful way, in an impactful way, something that's true to what my brand is, what my destination is, and what it is that I want to emote, and what it is that I want people to be attracted to come to my space, because I have a 10 by 10, I have a 20 by 20, I have a 20 by 40. How do I make that space be a place that people want to come to and feel like they're in my space? So surround yourself by experts and pretty much tell them what you're hoping to share, what your idea is. And I'm gonna give a little plug here to the girls at Chic and Swell who help me do most of my activations, and they just listen to what it is that I want, and I trust them to listen. I'm giving a little shout out to Michael Kutcher now. Listen to the music. Yeah. Listen to MC's music. This is what she wants to create. This is what she's hoping to do. And then I'm gonna listen to your music because you're the creative voice behind what I'm trying to get out. So surround yourself by experts, trust them, and that's what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. So it'd be a different kind of focus for you guys on the back end of the show, but what advice would you give to an exhibitor to make sure they're getting their brand out? Because Sean, you've seen at your show, you go by some booths, they're packed with people. You go by Trauma, and she's got people going up in chairlifts, and they're skiing, and they're doing all these things. And then you've got the guy next door who's sitting there, and he's got nobody. So what advice would you give in that situation to make sure that you're getting the same level as somebody else?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the big thing is, yeah, some people have more budget and can do grander, but that doesn't matter in the end. Find something that's uniquely you. Do an activation. It doesn't have to be the chairlift, but something fun and funky. And I've seen fun and funky. And just, it could be so simple just to bring people in and show people who you are. And standing up from the chair is that first start, and getting off the chair and just showing people who you are. I mean, yes, the chairlift is a big part of your, I know we'll call hypothetically, but if you didn't have the budget for a chairlift, you could be there with your bubbly persona and you could do something cheap and cheerful, right? So there is and I think it's really important that earlier you're planning, yes, we're all busy, you all have day jobs, this is just a part of it. But even planning, a little bit ahead, that gives you that unique flavor that you could also push that brand out on social media ahead. So people are like, oh, I want to go see the trombone booth, or I want to go see booth XYZ, because they know what they're looking for.
Okay, thanks for all the love, guys. It's really appreciated. I just want to say one thing. Budget is a real thing, and it might seem like there's a lot of budget behind something, but I'm a savvy little squirrel, and I pinch my pennies. I have no choice. I have a real budget that I have to deal with for all of the shows that I'm doing. And so there's a way to be creative, and the partnerships that you make with those people that are following you at each and every single show, at each and every activation, when you say, my hands are tied, how can we partner here? It's basically, you've built that relationship with them, and they're gonna, pat your back as much as you're gonna pat their back. So I think there's a lot that you can do even though you're on a budget. You know, you might not have a bubbly personality, but there's a way. Think about what your brand is and what it is you want people to remember, and I think you're just going to be able to have that attraction to your booth, and it's just going to become natural. Think about your why to come to your booth.
I like that.
So Matt, from your perspective, you've been to a lot of various different shows, but before we get that, I was told there's a question at the back.
Julia.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on that thought, I would love to know, from a exhibitor's point of view,
Yeah.
and also from the show side, how do we deal with exhibitors who are telling us that the show wasn't successful for them, yet we've created a networking activity for the entire show. We ran food through the exhibitor space. We did all of the things. And then as the show producer, we're there walking around and we see that they were the person with the table set up in front and they had their laptop out and then they're the ones complaining that they didn't get enough traffic. So how would you recommend that we educate them? Like, what are the tools that we could be using? Because we see it, I know exactly what the problem is, but how do I not just say, well, it's actually your fault because you actually set yourself up like that. You didn't talk to anyone, so it's not on me. How can we better educate our exhibitors to make sure that they're getting what they need out of the show?
I think, Julia, you hit the nail on the head right there. How can we best educate our exhibitors so they're getting the most out of the show? So I'm going to put that over to Sean to answer that question, because he deals with this a lot.
So how we started with the whole idea of no finger pointing, I think that's important. It's asking the right questions. You just have to really sit down, think it through properly, and ask the questions. You know, have a sit down after the show. The show floor is not the right place. It's after, it's a coffee, it's personal, and it's just really asking the right questions. I can't tell you what the right questions are because it really depends on what the situation is, but it's really getting to a personal level and really, you know, hitting it home and then going from there. That's probably the best way.
I just want to check something with Julia. Now, when you're saying the exhibitor and the we of you being the one that actually helped them activate, right? Is that what you're saying? And you're getting the complaint from the exhibitor saying nobody came?
Not so much that we help them activate it, because if they didn't ask for the activation,
Right.
obviously we're not gonna do that. But just like being the conference producer and we set up their booths, we got
Right.
everybody, you know, and they got to choose their booth
Yeah.
space, they got to do all those things.
Yeah. So that's a really, it's a tough question. I don't even know, I'm gonna practice empathy here, but I think people need to remember how to talk to one another and to have some ownership on their own behavior. And I know it's hard to have those conversations, but it's you know, you can say, this is where I own that, and maybe I could have helped educate you a little bit better, but here's maybe how we can work together and how you can do better. I don't know how else to answer that, but have some ownership. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I think it does come a lot to that accountability side. If
Accountability,
if they're coming to you and saying that they're not getting what they wanted from that activation, well, what is it that they wanted?
Yeah.
Can they even tell you that? And if they say sales, be like, okay, we get it. We want sales, you want RFPs, but beyond that, what are you looking for within that activation? What is the emotion that you are trying to establish with your brand? And if they can't answer that question, you can't help them. And if it comes down to the fact that you know they're just sitting on their computer, then you need to educate and give them some resources. Be like, you know what, we could do some exhibitor training. Maybe we could have your partners get on and show you how to interact with your attendees better. Because once you start interacting with the attendees and you actually put your phone and computer away and you're present, a lot of exhibitors have an overwhelming amount of success and appreciation for being there.
Yeah, it's definitely not a situation of if you build it, they will come. Just because you have a booth.
You gotta hustle. You gotta hustle.
Just because you have a booth at a trade show doesn't mean they're gonna swarm you and want your business. I'm gonna put Tammy Adams on the spot here because she does a fantastic job. So she's exhibited the last 2 years at Teamy, I don't know where that came from. Tammy, See Me. So she's exhibited, she has a little 5x10 space, and she has done such a fabulous job in engaging. She's constantly standing in the aisle. She has a fun little activity. Last year she had a photo booth. This year she had these little give somebody a compliment cards. And she was just there and engaging with people as they walked by. Now, mind you, a lot of people know Tammy. So when they came by, they're saying hi, and of course she brought back a seasoned veteran to her company this year, so everybody who used to produce the show, so they were very excited to see her. But she does a fabulous job of just being present in the moment and engaging those people, and that's, like Matt said, if the person's not able to provide the answers to the questions of what they wanted to get out of it, then there's really not much you can do. So in a subtle way, you can say, hey, I found these resources online about, you know, how to draw more traffic to your booth. I thought they might be helpful for you when you're planning for next year. And just doing those sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just gonna say, just be human. Like, I know it sounds so simple, but it's like when you're authentic and genuine with people, they will be that way back. Like, just be approachable, right? Because people there's a lot to see. They're overwhelmed. Like, trust me, they're overwhelmed to a trade show.
Yeah.
But like, if you can just create that space, like we even moved our table so that it was in the corner, so that it was like and then we set up 2 chairs. So it was like, and I don't have a big budget. I'm doing this on my own, my friends. So I definitely don't have the big budgets, but I think it's that element of being human and being real and being honest with people. And you know, it will go far. And I think the other thing too, remember, is it's the long game. So like, yes, I got business out of that show, thank you, but it's still the long game. Like, we're still playing the game, and I know more will come.
So I think it's also that reminder in this like very instant gratification society that we just remember it is the long game and it's just gonna take some time.
And it's also really important to remember that just because you might be setting up the booth, the people that are in the booth are not always the same people.
Yeah.
So if you have someone that you're putting in the booth who might be part of the sales team or the marketing team, there needs to be more flexibility and understanding that if they're gonna be at that show, they should be completely offline. And if they answer an email, you need to reply back and be like, shut your computer and focus on where you are and be present. Because there's this sense of fear that people have when they're at these trade shows, that they get nervous that if they stop paying attention to their real job and they're at a trade show, that they're not actually doing their job. But the reality is, if they're present and they're focused on the task at hand, it'll be a very fruitful outcome.
If I go to any, I was just gonna say, if I go to any trade show or show and I see you on your computer, I'm gonna walk by you because you're busy, right? It's fun.
Exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. So I want to be mindful of our time, and I know there was a few hands that shot up. I think there was one, yeah. Go ahead, and then we'll go to you in the back corner, and then after that we'll go to Chris, I think. Nope. Okay, Chris is gonna watch. You're so cute. Thank you, Chris, very much. I appreciate it. So go right ahead.
I was gonna say it's interesting if there was surveys, so if you do attendee surveys and then share those and hear from the people that attended, what they liked, what they didn't like, what activations were interesting, so that when you have those questions later, that you could share that information and say, hey, our attendees love these kind of activations. So rather than pointing the finger and saying, hey, you really didn't do enough, you were sitting on your computer, it's just a more general, hey, these are some of the activations that worked really well, or this is what the attendees enjoyed seeing or doing. Because every year, everybody's trying to come up with different things, and you're not trying to give away secrets, but at the same time, they also want to know that what is engaging people these days, because what somebody saw at one show may not work for another show, and I think we are all overwhelmed, and not everybody is super creative, and sometimes it's budget, sometimes it's not, but just hearing what the delegates are getting out of a show really helps those of us that are choosing to buy for another show.
What that calls to mind for me, sorry, is something that I wanted to say actually before, so thank you for that. It's mentorship. We're mostly all or have been MPI members of different associations. Mentorship. Yes, they're my competitors, but they're also my colleagues in the industry. What might not be good for me one year might be good for them one year. It's collaboration. So if I see somebody who's struggling, it's their first year, they're shy, it's hard to be in a 20 by 20 booth and attract people to you and always be on. It's difficult, and people have life and they have, different afflictions that it's hard for them to be there. Lend a hand. Don't just say, oh, look at that poor guy sitting there and he's so shy and he's not doing anything. Lend a hand. Be a mentor.
It's an interesting question you bring up about, like, what do you see working in other shows? When we have clients ask us that, we literally tell them, does it matter? Because what really matters is your attendees and what they are interested in at that time. So we try to have more discovery questions to really truly understand the audience. Maybe the audience changes every single year, and that's okay, and we'll tailor that. Oftentimes we'll have conversations with a sponsor or someone who has an activation, and we want to know their brand, what type of emotion they're looking for. It was like, okay, now we can give you some suggestions of some of these activations. We did this exercise with Dreamforce recently. I don't know if anyone has seen photos of this. They went through with their entire team a back and forth about what they were going to do completely different from years past, but they didn't know what. And they wanted us to throw 1,000,000 darts at them, and we basically said no. Because we don't want to waste our time on just throwing 1,000,000 darts. We want to understand, what are you trying to actually do at your show? What are you looking for? And then we come up with some of the coolest activations. Cool activations, you have barber shops now that are being on the show floor.
Cool.
Yeah, goat yoga, all that kind of like
Was that your
weird
last
stuff.
show? You got your hair done at the last show? So, okay, back corner there, you've been waiting for a while.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, we survey our exhibitors ahead of time to find out what their needs are and expectations, and then we do how to do a kind of video in a cheeky way. So if you're looking for a lot of engagement, we show a video of somebody being engaged, and then we show you the opposite of the person with their laptop down and said, don't do this. Like, so we clearly make it, available to them, the information, we're mentoring them along the way. And I do wanna shout out Tammy, because I did see her singing, and I have her frog cars, and I've been. Authentic interaction.
Love
Didn't
it.
feel salesy at all. Like, it was just a wonderful engagement. So
Yeah.
I think being authentic as well will draw them.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing next year.
No.
You're figuring out, Tammy.
Yeah, exactly, I'm like, but thank you.
I will say something about those surveys real quick though, because I love surveys, but I have a love-hate relationship with them, because on survey results, you're gonna get people that absolutely loved the show and absolutely hated the show. That in between,
No middle ground.
there's no middle ground. Like, what is going on in that space? Where are those people that are just kind of skating by, they're coming to the show because they're told to, but how can you elevate the experience? They're the ones filling out the survey.
By show of hands, how many in this room actually complete the surveys? Yeah. How many have completed the surveys after the sessions you've attended today? Yeah. Okay, there's another question. I see you there behind Tammy.
So also, as the show organizer, that it's been my job to sell the vendors on the booth. I've made those relationships in order to sell those booths, so I also feel it's my responsibility to call you and say, wherever you plan to set up a booth, sat on their computer the entire time, so I'm sorry you didn't get the leads, but you didn't have the right people there. And letting them know that, because it's their job to, pick the right staff, train them, and if they're not picking the right staff, they need to know that, so they don't waste money on sending somebody to a show that's not going to generate leads.
Thank you for that attention.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think we could go, one more question, and then, how many?
Brenda?
Oh, Brenda's got a question. Yes, Brenda, go ahead.
I find that sometimes it's hard to get that inspiration if you've never been to a show before, or that particular one. So, I feel like pointing them in the direction of maybe last year's hashtag, or something that can give them some inspiration as far as, here are some options other people have done, and you can kind of get that kickstart, like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this, that will work my way. So.
Great, thank you. And I think we had one more over here.
Yeah,
Nancy.
I just had a quick comment. We were talking about staying engaged, not being on your computer. I find when lead retrieval is on your phone, I don't like it. On your phone, you look like you're texting and people don't want to interrupt you, but really what you're doing is lead retrieval. I prefer just a quick
Old-fashioned
scanner.
scanner.
Yes, your conversation goes.
Believe it or
I
not,
love
my
the business card
company,
nowadays.
yeah, my company has done away with lead retrieval at our trade shows. We are very much, I work for Skyjack. We manufacture scissor lifts and booms and telehandlers. You guys have all seen them. They're the really pretty orange and gray ones, not the blue ones. But you've all seen them, you've all used them. But we've done away with lead retrieval systems. Our sales team said it's not worth it. We were spending like $3,500. People were coming up to scam me because at our shows you can enter to win a prize. So scam me, and you even see it at See Me. It's not scam me, scam me, scam me, scam me. Well, is that a really quality?
What's the intention?
What's the intention of it? So we've done away with our lead retrieval devices because a lot of the people coming to the shows already know our sales team. They're coming to finalize contracts. They're coming to talk about potential business. If it's somebody new, they're gonna get their business card. So instead of having the fishbowl out, or instead of using, and I'm nothing against merits or any lead retrieval programs, if that is something that works for you, go for it, do it. We found it didn't work for us, so we did away with it, yeah?
Yeah, we moved to having them scan a QR code and enter their own information.
Yeah.
Because we found that was a pre-filter, that the salespeople just didn't go to a lot of people didn't want to talk to. So if they take it, don't have 10,000 questions on it, just the bare facts of their information. But that kept the salespeople off their phones and made it filter.
And just so everyone knows, there is a trend kind of coming up the pipe right now where badges are going away completely. We're seeing the integration of just wristbands with RFID on them. That way you can also track and know the movements of everyone. They're not people, they don't have names, they're just data points that you can use. But this is a way to engage that network, and you have to make meaningful, intentional conversations. Because when we're at these events, half the time you walk up to someone and the first thing you're looking at is their badge. You don't even look them in the eye. And then you make that quick decision, do you want to have a conversation with them or not?
It's funny because we're all creatures of habit, right? So we had, MPI Toronto had an event this summer in connection with the Metro Toronto Convention Center, and there were no badges. I was freaked out. Like, how am I gonna know who anybody is? I don't have a badge, I have to talk to people? What?
Anyone in sales would really love that, because no one can start a conversation with you because they see you're in sales and like, I want to talk to this person. They're in sales, they're gonna sell me something.
We're at time. Zaman, I saw you got your hand up, but I'll take one more of the lovely lady in green there.
Nothing lovely about it.
You're amazing. Do not doubt yourself.
I want to go back to the cost of rentals for chairs and things, that initial opening.
Oh, that's a whole other panel.
That would be next year.
Time and again with my group is they are buying their furniture and then want me to donate it at the end of the show, rather than shift and pay rent. So it's great for some charities, but it's no paddle work.
It's greenwashing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's passing the buck to somebody else to deal with that problem.
I was just, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Forced removal at the end of the show and go somewhere, but I just wondered if you're seeing that trend.
Of the recycling, of upcycling?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a big trend, but a lot of what we're seeing now is what's happening after that stage. When we recycle signage at signs, at the end of the show, we give them to teachers, but what happens when it gets there? Because it's now the teacher's problem. So what we do is investigate even more of what's the next step? How does it recycle from that point? So that way we can share that with the attendees. Because if you forget, like once you close the door, it's like you forget about it. But we want to be able to share what's actually happening. So with the furniture, we do that kind of the same thing.
And I think we could probably sit here and talk all for the rest of today and tomorrow about all these things that come up with trade shows and exhibiting and working with show service providers and show producers and how to make the best of our experience. I invite you to join the MPI exhibitor community. It's a new initiative that I started in the MPI community forums. When you scan that QR code, it will take you to your MPI login. So just log in and then come and join the exhibitor community. We can continue this conversation. Both Matt and Sean are with me. I'm the chair of that committee and community, and these gentlemen are part of my committee. And we're really helping to bring forth education, knowledge, and resources to the exhibitors, because there hasn't really been anything in the past for the exhibitor to help them understand and learn and figure out whether you're a seasoned veteran or you're new to exhibiting. Please come and join us. We'd love to have the conversation. Doesn't matter what side of the booth you're on, everybody is part of the trade show experience. So I thank you very, very much for your time today. Happy to take a few more questions because I was just told we actually have till 2:30 and it's only 2:23. So if anybody has any more questions, and then this is all of us. If you'd like to connect with any of us, those are our LinkedIn QR codes. Please join us, have a conversation with us. Email us, we're happy to help you. Just to kind of summarize, so I'm going to start with Sean, because you've been kind of the middle speaker for the whole time. So what would your advice and top suggestions be for an exhibitor in getting ready for your show?
Look at the kit first, go through it, put all your important due dates, your triage list, so you have your most important to the least important and nice to-dos, and then really figure out your goal and your theme. Because once you sort of know your goal, what your theme's gonna be, it then goes a bit more into place, and then you can really understand what your sort of success looks like for you and hit all the milestones.
Great. And Matt, what would you suggest?
For anyone who is familiar with Simon Sinek, I suggest to be the idiot. That if it's something you don't know, just ask the question, because we're here to help, and every one of us, show producers and your partners, they want to help you. So if you don't know the answer to something, or you just need help in general to keep things on track, just ask. It'll help you a long way.
And MC?
All of that. Have those communications with your lemonade. Surround yourself by experts, and don't be afraid to ask your competitors. Hey, what worked for you? I saw you guys were hustling that. Can you teach me a little bit? Don't give me your secrets, but what can I be doing? You see me going, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think it's really important, and we shy away from that.
One other thing,
Yes.
doesn't matter what show. Look at the pictures from last year. The pictures can tell you 1,000 stories. Doesn't matter the conference, the trade show, look at last year's pictures. Doesn't mean you're gonna do the same thing, but maybe you'll understand, people are, like at the event are dressed way more cash. Maybe it's more formal. And that'll give you really an idea of where a starting point is.
And one last thing, fill out those surveys. I don't always do it, but if you want to get a point across to these guys, that's the way to do it. That's how we're all going to be able to succeed and get better at what we do, because they need to know.
And don't be afraid to steal ideas. I also have a diploma in graphic design, and one of the things we learned is that all good graphic designers steal their ideas from other good graphic designers.
There's a great book called Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid to steal ideas. If you make just one small little change, it's now yours. So,
And a fun little open-ended question, if you add an open-ended question to your survey that says, what do you wish you saw at the event? It's always a good one to get ideas from your audience. So I love
absolutely.
throwing it.
So I want to thank all of you for your time today. I hope this was informative for you. I hope it's given you some insight. I hope to see you on the Exhibitor Community Forum, having those conversations. I'd love to chat with you further if you want to. A very, very special thank you to MC and Sean and Matt for coming and joining us today. I think you guys have a lot of insight. I have so much I can learn from all of you, and I have such fun working with you all and learning about our caps and our travel habits and our books. So thank you, everyone.
Our feed is hilarious.
It's not ending.
So thank you very much, everyone.